The first thing is I wanted to identify and clarify the difference between the voluntary carbon market and the compliance or regulated carbon markets, which is where we invest. The voluntary market is, for many people, it's the market they're most familiar with. That's where on a website you can buy some carbon credits or carbon offsets. You might be able to click and offset emissions for a flight. And that voluntary market is, as they say, it's voluntary. So it's run as a for-profit activity by companies who pick a project, and the most common project is to plant trees. Trees grow and they suck in carbon dioxide and they emit oxygen, which is wonderful. And indeed, our forests on the planet are massive carbon sink, as well as the ocean. So the voluntary carbon market is project related, but it's still really in its infancy, and it really needs additional sort of upgrades in terms of the quality of how those projects are monitored, verified, and reported in terms of what carbon is actually sequestered in those projects. There are 5 key characteristics about the voluntary market, and it's just where the market is today. The first thing is to say it's broadly unregulated. So that is just an issue to be aware of. The second is it's illiquid. Thirdly, it's quite small in size. The total market last year was $300 million in carbon credits or offsets. Now, if you compare that to the regulated carbon market, last year that was 300 billion. So there's a 1,000 times difference in size between these two carbon markets. The fourth point is it's very opaque on the pricing in the voluntary market. And the final point is that the supply of these credits and offsets is virtually unlimited. So they just bring more projects. Now, if we switch the lens over to the regulated carbon markets and we apply those same 5 key points, first of all, they're run by government. So the markets are highly regulated. Secondly, they're very liquid. So these markets are trading between $3 and $5 billion daily. There's exchange listed futures, exchange listed options. The size of the market I mentioned, 300 billion, so it's very big. It's very transparent. And the fifth and key point is the supply of carbon in these regulated markets is capped, and every year that supply is reduced. And so very important that the listeners understand that these are 2 very, very different carbon markets.